Left of the box.
I think to that point of, you know, Americans loving foreigners telling us how to think while those same Americans hate foreigners.
Mhm.
But yeah, like the Steven Crowder or the Jordan Peterson or the Gavin McInnes like effect of Canadians doing that with America. I've just always felt like, as someone who's been like spent an extended amount of time outside of the country, I've always felt like the best way to understand a country is to live outside of it
Mhm.
and to see like how it's perceived, because you every country has propaganda and every
Mhm.
country has nationalism. It seeps, and every country has like a myopia to itself, and like it's usually good because, other than the United States and to some extent China and more recently like
Mhm.
Russia and Ukraine, like there isn't really much talk about many other countries outside of individual countries.
Mhm.
Like countries only talk about themselves. They have to be their
Yeah.
biggest cheerleader, especially internally. That's like where the news is most affecting. But
Mhm.
as with many situations, like local issues are the more important thing. um when you get when you're able to look at a country's politics from outside of it, you are a little bit removed from their propaganda.
Mhm.
So you like would be getting a very different, like, even there's this conversation on parts of the left and parts of the right. I'm not going to get into it because it's politics on a Saturday morning for me, and I don't care at this point in time in my life right now. But maybe you catch me on a weekday and perhaps. But you would get a way different, perspective of the war in Ukraine if you were living in Ukraine, just by definition of living in Ukraine. I don't think that's a controversial statement. Whereas in America and, outside of America, you have like people on the far left and the far right who are, for different reasons, coming to a more anti-war kind of sentiment. And that's just something that you get more. I'm not saying whether that's good or a bad thing. I'm just saying that compared to Ukraine, where it's a lot more like, well, yeah, duh, we're defending our territory. And it's a lot more like, I'm not saying it's fully unilateral there, but a lot more people support it because that's how the media is perceived. And that's also a local thing there. That is how we sort of learn to get a better sense of countries than the countries may even have of themselves, or have like different perspectives, even. So I can see how that happens so much. I just think
Mhm.
Americans are too like America centric to be able to like have a lot of exports that
Mhm.
America sends over to like England, for example. It's like, okay, I'm the monarchy understander now, and I'm gonna go over to England and tell them how to run their parliament. Like, there's no American that does that, because like we just don't even teach much
Mhm.
about our own government in schools.
Mhm.
But that's I
Yeah.
think that there is that effect.
Yeah.
I mean, for some reason, we still keep taking Piers Morgan.
Yeah. Well, they don't teach much about Canadian history in Canadian schools either. Like, not legit, like, this is actually what happened, this is how our government functions and stuff. It's all been so maple washed. But I did find it interesting this one time. I was at a conference of some sort about poverty at a local college, and there was a group of students there from the United States speaking at this, like participating in this conversation circle. And just hearing them speak about their experiences in Canada versus being in the States. And they're like, we're just so relaxed here. Like, there was just like an overwhelming sense of relief because they weren't afraid of being shot every day. You know, the underlying violence that is a constant threat in the States, they weren't feeling that for the first time in their lives, pretty much. And it was so jarring to a lot of them. And just, like, I can't imagine living like that.
Oh yeah, I'll say when I was younger, I didn't really feel that, because I still, in America at least, went to schools where, like, I remember during the pandemic going by some of the old schools I used to go to that didn't have fences all around them, that had like went okay, now that there's no kids here, we can just build the fences to make sure there's no like shooters that can get in. And these are like fairly, suburban schools and like relatively nice neighborhoods, right? So like but it's also like it happens anywhere. And so like this is to say we had earthquake drills and fire drills, but now they actually have like mass shooter drills
Mm-hmm.
in schools now. And so that's just an entirely different frame space. And then yeah, going to in a video that I keep thinking about, but I just like have so much stuff to edit, so I'm busy this weekend. But like there's this video I want to work on that I took when I was traveling, and the like switch in the video from when it comes like a fun little like travel vlog to like a very like semi-serious political thing was how often people I would meet in other countries would joke about, hey, how does it feel to not constantly feel like you're gonna be shot at any given moment? And it was like the level of joking we were on, like having that
Mm-hmm.
conversation, but that was all inevitably the joke. Like, haha, America. First thing that comes to my mind is like you could get shot at any moment. And like it's not just like a cultural joke. There are uh, countries and national embassies who are saying, hey, if you go to America, they've been warning about the health insurance for a long time. They're saying like,
Mm-hmm.
hey, it's just like get on the first plane back, and that's going to be much cheaper for all involved than you like looking at a Kaiser Permanente in the United States, right? But yeah, that these countries have been warning, avoid American health insurance, and by the way, they carry guns all the time, illegally or otherwise, or legally, and you run the risk of getting shot much more than you do in most other countries in the world.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, like that goes to that thing of in America, you just sort of like accepted that. It's like, cost of doing business. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a little bit of a nervousness because, yeah, like you never know who has, even when you're driving, you wonder, like, should I honk my horn? Because maybe they'll get upset and start like shooting. Because
Mm-hmm.
like that, we have freeway shootings now. Like, that's a thing.
Yeah.
So you internalize that, but other people see how ridiculous that is, that it's become like a joke they play on Americans who come and visit them. Like the first thing that
Mm-hmm.
comes to mind across multiple languages, across multiple cultures. So yeah,
Yeah. Like
it's really good to be outside looking in.
one of the things about the gun culture that it feels like it just adds to the problem, and I can't wrap my head around why everyone is still so okay with this gun culture is the cost of your health care. Because it's not just the threat of getting shot, it's the threat of living afterwards too with hospital bills. Because,
Yeah.
like, I've been talking a lot of bad stuff about the Canadian healthcare system and how it's falling apart, and all of that is true. However, I still know that if I were to get shot, I can go to the hospital, emerge, get surgery, and not have to pay for it. Like, it's like in that moment, like if you're trying to diagnose something chronic, or you have certain ailments and can take years to get the scans you need, years to get diagnosed, years for that sort of treatment. But for a trauma like a car accident or being shot, you go to the hospital, providing the ER is open, and you can get treated. And the ambulance, it costs the ambulance around here, it's about $50. Parking for people visiting you, but other than that, you don't have a bill unless you want internet in your room or something like that.
It's a joke of people calling Ubers to the hospital,
Mm-hmm.
because an Uber could be like, worst case scenario, like surge prices, like
Mm-hmm.
$70, maybe like $100 to your nearest hospital, usually less, like 30. And ambulances can be $3,000
God.
as much, which
So
is
cheaper than the
probably like,
price, yeah, cheaper than the price of an ambulance trip is my cat's vet bill. So
way to make it full circle.
if
Yes.
people donate just for the cost of one ambulance trip, you can pay off my cat's vet bill.
And it's it is really sad in that case, because you not only see people, well, like, yeah, now it's like, oh, cool, now I have to get blood out of my Uber. You're just
Mm-hmm.
like an Uber driver, and it's like, okay, well, now I'm this vital service in America.
Mm-hmm.